Gates Adams here on behalf of Apex Trader Funding, and I am here today with Lea. Once again, had the opportunity to have a conversation with her a couple of months ago, I think, and she brought on her mentor, Lachy, of Samurai Day Trading, and we had a lot of fun. We don't usually do the group interview sort of thing, but we had so much fun last time that she decided to bring Fred in as well, who is also a part of Samurai, if I'm not mistaken, part of the trade room. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
And so we're just going to have some fun with this and just kind of get an idea of what's been going on with you guys, how Apex has been able to fit into all of this for all of you. Hopefully get some nuggets of wisdom. Welcome, all three of you. Thanks for hanging out with me today.
Thanks, kids. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay, well let's lead in with Lea, because of course it's your payout that got us into that triggered the interview in the first place. Clearly this is not your first payout. So not only are we starting to see the success, we're starting to see consistency, we're starting to see something beyond where some of us kind of find ourselves in the luck phase. We're past that. Now this is being more and more of a business, as an opportunity to grow and develop, not just as a trader, but for your financial future. So tell us a little bit about kind of where you are in your mindset as far as how you see trading.
I think I mentioned last time, it was 2007 that I first met Lachy in Brisbane, and I listened to him and I thought, I think that could work. My background's I'm a business manager and project manager in government and private enterprise as well, and I thought, this could work. And I honestly believed in all my heart, yes, there would be traders who could do it, but would I? So that became the part of the mantra and the journey of what happened is I had 11 years. I met Lachy, I made the contact, I did some learnings, and then my career just skyrocketed and did all sorts of crazy things and ended up working with prime ministers and very interesting people. And so I had a ball doing that. But in the background, there was always this, I was going to do real estate and I was also going to trade. And I thought, well, I'll do all them. So I became a real estate agent. Then the call of being a grandparent was louder than a real estate career. So then I went, hang on, I need to be able to do something in other hours in my office, not go anywhere. And then I was getting all these job offers. And at that stage, I was doing a massive amount of traveling, going overseas 5 or 6 times a year. So it was, again, how do I do this? And then learn about trading and start to put that into practice, tried and traded here, there and everywhere. So the trading journey, I guess I do not know of another profession, occupation, thing that would give us the huge amount of flexibility of time, place, shortness of time. I mean, hey, we can be finished in 15, 20 minutes.
If we're responsible.
And so that was my journey, and then we all go through the ups and downs of learning how to trade and how it can be amazing and euphoric, and then
I love it. And you touch on some really key components. I think that I'm guilty of this, and I latched onto it for a reason, because my trading day technically is 90 minutes, yet somehow I find myself in the chart for 6 hours a day, which is not the ideal scenario. And of course, there's a level of discipline that comes in with that. But there's also, we do trade for a reason. We want that freedom of time. We want that freedom of location. I love the fact that you talk about trading in an airport, really and truly, and especially with modern technology and some of the stuff that's recently come out. I mean, there's almost nowhere that you can go now where you can't have an internet connection suitable for trading. I think we oftentimes forget, to our own detriment, really the value that we have in that we can do this in a few minutes or 90 minutes or whatever it is that we decide is based on our strategy. Not only are we likely to do better if we stick to that, but we're also likely to be a lot happier and have more time to do the things that we would rather be doing. Although some of us would rather be trading. Now, you mentioned something early in your response, and I wanted to kind of touch on this, but I kind of wanted to touch on this more from Lachy's standpoint as a mentor. You mentioned that you started this process with this thought process of, I know other people can do it, but can I do it? With trading, this is such a natural response because I think in the early days, we think we can go watch a YouTube video, learn a strategy, execute, and be rich in a couple of months. I say that sort of flippantly. I think logically we all know that that's not really the case. However, when we really start to see, oh, I think I'm almost there, and then we have a devastating loss, I think psychologically speaking, this does start to sort of stack the evidence maybe that we are not built for this. But we forget that this is not a short-term business. You're not going to learn this in a couple of months and be ravingly successful in most cases. There's exceptions to every rule. So Lachy, I actually want to address this or pose this to you. When you're working with more novice traders or even traders that have been at it for a period of time but really just haven't seen that level of success, how do you address this psychological sort of stance? Because I know when we get something in our subconscious, our actions will follow what our subconscious believes. So how do you get somebody out of that phase when maybe they've had 20-something years of experience telling them, hey, I'm not good at this?
I'd suggest three things, if I may. I'd say first and foremost, quite often we talk about this when we're in the live trading room. The point being is that market takes off, we do really, really well, and then it slows right down, and everyone's sort of umming and ahhing and sort of staring at each other. So then we go off on our little psychological rants.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first thing about your subconscious, I think that would be to accept the fact that the subconscious is very, very hard to reprogram. So if you've got, let's say in my case, 51 years of people telling you money's hard to earn, money doesn't grow on trees, there's lots of people that tell you trading doesn't work, so you're dragging all of this subconscious baggage with you.
Mm-hmm.
What we do is we basically default back to the mathematical algorithm or back to the signal set that's proven to work. And I think it's really, really important in terms of Lee's success. Fred's also going very, very well, so in terms of Fred's success, I tend to find that trading is as much about a mathematical algorithm or a set of signals or like a set of, people quite often say, oh, what's your edge in the market?
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, well, my edge is just straight mathematics. This is something that I understand. When the market does X, Y, Z, it's overbought, so we turn around and we send it back the other way. So I think it's maths, but it's also community.
Mm-hmm.
When I started my journey, I was one of those, I'm going to watch a YouTube video and in 3 months I'm going to be retired as a millionaire. And ironically, I left the army, and you're allowed to laugh, but I left the army on 6 months long service leave after 15 years in the army.
Mm-hmm.
I said, you know what, I'm going to have this nailed within 6 months. All the army guys are like, mate, we'll see you again in 6 months. I was like, no, I'm never coming back. The amount of pressure I think we put on ourselves to succeed instantly, and when we compare ourselves to other traders, we suddenly look at traders that are earning a couple of $1 million a year and go, what if he can do it, I can do it. But then our start to the journey is not that easy.
Right.
So I quite often say to people, your trading success is about three things. It's about your algorithm, but more importantly, it's about community, and it's also about what we call a zero comparison principle, which is there's no point me comparing myself to Fred or me comparing myself to Lee, because we're in different stages of our development as a professional trader. So I'd say to everybody, if you want to be really, really good at trading, sure, the maths is important, the actual signals are important, but a community to back you up and tell you, for example, in the trading room, if we take a losing trade, which is very rare, we get to share okay guys, well, we didn't get that right, that's not a personal failing, this is what went wrong with the market, so we're going to wait for this to occur, then we're all going to get back in again. We're going to get all the loss back plus more. That's not called revenge trading. That's called let's be smart as a group and get on with the job of it. And likewise too, like last night we had 3 or 4 winning trades in a row straight up, and everyone's like, it's actually a little bit demoralizing against when everyone goes, okay guys, well I kind of finished, it's like 20 minutes into the session, I'll see you tomorrow. as the moderator, you see your numbers start declining. Did I offend someone? Look, we are really big on a daily KPI, like a daily walkaway point.
Sure.
And for the junior traders, that's sort of $100, $150 US.
Mm-hmm.
And we say, look, please grab your money, run away, come back tomorrow, we'll do it again. In 12 to 14, 15 weeks time, it'll probably be 4 or 5 times bigger. And then 12 to 14 weeks after that, it'll be 4 or 5 times bigger. I think we've got to be really, really careful we don't get lost in that $100 US a day when other guys are pulling $13,000, $14,000, $15,000 out.
Right.
And say, well, I'm going to try and catch up with him. It's like, no, he's In Lee's case, that person's 12 years in front of you.
Sure.
So instead of, he goes, not to take up all the time, instead of comparing yourself to a trader doing 12 grand a day and beating yourself up, as I say in the live trading room all the time, how about I give you that person's number and you can have a chat with that person about the journey to get to $12,000 a day, so you don't want to try and do it in 12 weeks. So to me, it's about algorithm, it's about mathematics, but so importantly, it's about community. If you're not surrounded by a group of people that do the same thing as you do, trading can be a really lonely game.
Yeah.
And I started trading schools because I had no one to talk to about trading. I couldn't go to the coffee shop and say to the barista, hey, what do you think about the NASDAQ last night? She'd look at me and go, you're a freak, I'm calling the police. So it goes through there.
It's funny. I've often made the comment that I think traders oftentimes have more monitors than they have friends that they can talk to about trading. I'm a big proponent of that community, because it can be very lonely. And the people that you do know in the world of trading, so often they're trading a completely different strategy or even a completely different market. You know, NQ traders laugh at ES traders because they're so slow, and ES traders are like, you guys are nuts over there on the NQ, or whatever the case may be. Even those that you can have a conversation with, oftentimes it's really hard to make that real connection where you can bat ideas off of each other. And so I think not only community, but I think community that has a similar mindset or a similar strategy that can really have those in-depth conversations versus hey, what news is coming out today, or whatever the case may be. You know, we can always have those superficial conversations, but I do think that those deeper conversations really come from that like-minded group.
It's such a great point. We typically, I mean, last time we spoke, you know, we were literally just growing the samurai room. Now we're looking at more than, you know, depending on the day, more than 70 to 80 traders coming into the European Open. Fred's done an incredible job with the US close. We started with 4 traders, you know, literally 4 people that, you know, sort of quite, what I said, birds chirping in the background, 30 to 35 traders. Now that's only been going for a couple of months, and the US close is such a powerful time of the day to trade, particularly with all this tariff stuff going on, which is always hilarious. I think it comes down to, if everybody's focused, for example, Fred US close, they only focus on the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ, and because they work in perfect synergy with each other, you know, you've got the crazies on the NASDAQ, you've got the conservatives on the S&P 500, but we're all doing the same thing, we follow the same signal set. There's no kind of, oh, well, I do this, but you do that. So again, if there's a losing trade, it's normally a mechanical fault of the market. And Fred does such an incredible job of saying to people, hey guys, that's not your fault. The market's done X, Y, Z, so we're going to wait for this and then we're going to get in. So Fred is not only a signal caller, but an educator, and he does such a great job of doing it. So we're bopping along. We're having a lot of fun, and again, congrats to Lee for doing such a great job leading.
Fred, I'm going to jump into you here real fast just because we had the privilege of having you on the call as well. So as a student turned mentor, coach, or whatever verbiage you prefer, as you kind of have expanded your journey, your level of success as a trader, because nobody gets into the mentorship role without obviously achieving some level of success. I guess what made you make the decision to move into more of a mentorship role? You're obviously doing well as a trader. What is it inside of you that says, hey, I want to be on those calls and I want to be there when someone has that rough day so that I can have that conversation? Hey, it's not your fault.
Okay, so it starts at the top. I mean, that's the way Lachlan is. I think we share, and then Lee's the same way. We share the same heart, really. And I'm at a stage in my life. I'm in my mid 60s. You know, I'm retired. How am I going to contribute?
Right.
You know, to society. How am I going to help other people? And really, this is probably the most significant thing that we all can do, is to help someone else become successful. You know, there's not a lot of people who will allow themselves to be accessible like that. You know, but when you have the proper heart for it, you say, hey, look, if you're not where you want to be, if you're not having the success you want, please raise your hand and reach out. You know, how many places do you know that'll actually do that? How many people do you know that have the heart to do that? My wife and I have traveled all over New Zealand, Australia, Indonesia, through trading. You know, and we get to meet the people who are in the LTO. We get to know them personally. We actually care whether they succeed or not. I mean, you just don't see that.
Yeah.
And not just in trading, but really what other workspace or we bring people together where you all can be successful, where my being successful is not going to hinder your ability to be successful, right?
Absolutely.
I'm rooting for you. I want you to become successful as well. We want to create those 1,000 millionaires like Lachy's goal set.
Right. I love that. Look, I've been around this space for quite a long time, and I know that there are, tons of training, mentorship, coaching sort of businesses out there. And I don't want to say the norm, because I've definitely seen both sides of the coin, but you see so many whose sole focus is getting more people into their program. Yes, logically you can say, well, then I'm helping more people, but there's economies of scale. You can only have a direct impact on so many people. And from what I'm hearing, there's the opportunity that we don't necessarily want to grow to 10,000 people in our program. We want to have enough people to where we can have a significant and meaningful impact on all of them, should they choose to fight the fight. Because at the end of the day, look, it's up to the trader, but it is a fight. And when you know that you've got a good coach in your corner, I'm going to refrain from giving a Rocky analogy here, but when you've got that coach in your corner that you know has your best interest at heart, that you know that you can trust them, you only develop this from having that level of connection. So I think that this is absolutely phenomenal. And Lee, Lee, this is your interview. As I sit here and I get the opportunity to talk to your coaches and mentors and the people who have been a part of your growth and development, I know that your level of commitment is what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody's going to get as far as you've gotten in trading without that. But I think it's such a beautiful thing to have this type of community, this type of mentorship, this type of guidance through what many of us will say is the hardest thing we've ever done. Look, I have no doubt that you would have made it anyway. Let me ask the question, how much of an impact do you think having this right group of people has had on not just your level of success, but the pace of your level of success?
Priceless. Thing is, without that level of support, I think many would drop away.
Mm-hmm.
They say only less than 10% of traders are successful. Well, we've got a WhatsApp chat, and the level of success in that group of, I think there's just 18, and it's just happened over the last couple of months, and we keep on adding people in, and that's just a quick way where we can kind of share any information. But the support, being not able to know, I can ring another trader or speak to another trader or talk to Lachy or Fred or whatever and say, I took a trade off the 166 thinking it was going to reverse, and it plowed through, and you both laugh. You just both know what it feels like. Now, a person who's not a trader, and we do Fibonacci, so that's where the 166 comes in. The frustration, you can just tangibly know the frustration, but without the support of a community, I don't know when I would have stopped. Quite some time ago. I've got a photo of me I took in 2020, beginning of 2020, and I'd had a very tiltful night and traded to the hilt, and I'd been into the wee hours, and I think it was like I traded for 8 hours or something and chewed through a whole lot of, zeros.
Sure.
And later on, I eventually showed it to friends who were traders, and they all know what it feels like. That's priceless. That's priceless. And on the other end, the other day, I think I sent the screenshot, and I finished for the day, and it was $125 US. And I said, finish for the day, 20 ticks a day, and everyone knows what I mean.
Right.
In our community is extremely supportive. I've been in many communities through my work situation, and there's only the rare ones that you really feel a high connection with. And hey, knowing that you can go into a live trading room twice a day, Euro Open, US close, knowing that there's somebody who can tell you this is happening, that's happening, these are the fibs. Wow, we think it might go up, but let's see what the market does.
I love it. And I'm just going to throw out there, because of course the whole reason that you're here is because you are an Apex funded trader. And I'll ask you, and then I'll pose this to Lachy as a mentor, as you've seen many people go through this process. And you made mention of a particular stat, which we've all heard, that 90% of traders do not succeed. And I think that stat comes from the early days of trading where funding wasn't really necessarily an option, because I think most traders had one shot. And what we've all experienced is that most traders blow their first account. So if you've only got one shot, you're out of the game for good, right? Because, let's say you convince your wife to take out some savings and you're going to change your financial future and this is it. And then it's, in 6 weeks it's blown or whatever the case may be. It's really kind of hard to have that conversation a second time. How much of an impact do you think have you experienced personally, Lea, by being able to take this route and have multiple stabs at achieving that level of success? Almost, I guess for a lot of people, an infinite number of opportunities to just start over without it really being financially devastating. How has that played out for you?
Oh, look, it is a game changer. Apex, the opportunity of being able to partner, and as you know, 50K accounts are my preferred, I think. I think because you need to get to 3,000, then bang, you're up and away. However, on that same flip of the coin, if by chance you're in a trade and the news spikes and bang, a couple of the traders happened that the other day, and they went from having a beautiful new live account and to news spikes,
right,
and they were taken out. So instead of 2,500 of their own dollars, it was a couple of $100.
Yeah.
And hey, Apex, that's a game changer.
Sure.
And for the people, they can live to fight another day. They can live to trade again. Whereas if it was 2,500 US out of their account, which in Australia is about 4,000 AU dollars, that's a big difference between, I guess it's less than 10%.
Sure.
You can do your learnings without financially being too hamstrung, I suppose.
And I love that. And I'm gonna pose this to you, Lachy, because of course, having a coaching company or mentorship company, you work with a lot of traders. How much of an impact have you seen by the growth of this industry as it has been? Like, what has that done to the success rate of your students?
Great question. Funding, we spoke about this the last time, and it's such a great point you raised. Funding is a complete game changer. It's a game changer because if I said to a good trader, our target return is 1 to 2% return per day. If you're doing really, really well, you can be pulling those kinds of figures. If you've got a $1,000 account, 1 to 2% return per day is not very sexy. So you say to your wife, you know what, I sat down, I did exactly what I was told for 90 minutes and I made $20.
Right.
You're like, right, go and get a job. But if you're funded at the $250,000 mark, as a comparison,
right,
and then you say, well, honey, I've done a 2% return today. 2% return on 250 grand is a very, very different game altogether. And most people out there watching this video right now, most people don't have a spare 250,000 US to throw into a trading account.
Right.
So that's where I think the game has changed enormously. Because again, if you target a 1 to 2% return per day, it's not a difficult thing to achieve. Flip side being is 1 to 2% on a small account really doesn't mean anything. So therefore, people on a small account, when they shouldn't, and of course, no one in the room has done this right, but you've got a tiny account, so you take a massive swing at the market, hoping you get it right, only to find out that probably wasn't a good idea. So if you start getting funded at the 50 grand or the 100 or the 150 or 250, not only are you not required to take that massive swing at the market, but you're putting yourself in a position where you can say, you know what, if I do a really good job of this over the next 3 to 6 months, that 250 grand account is going to be worth 300. And as a result, I've made 50,000 US dollars from a bank that I don't actually own, but I can financially benefit from that. So I don't need to take big swings at the market. I can focus on 1 to 2% return per day. And as we say all the time in the LTR, once you've hit your daily KPI, it's time to leave. Come back tomorrow, do it again, and we just do it over and over and over again. So in that case, we're really boring, but in being boring, that's where funding has completely changed the game. No big swings at the market. Most people can now get into a $150,000, $200,000 account, no trouble. You can trade them very carefully over 5 or 6 weeks. And suddenly you look at it and go, I looked at my stats this morning and gone, oh, hang on, I'm actually cruising along here. So all I've got to achieve is X, Y, Z, and then I've achieved another milestone. And psychologically, as we start to achieve these tiny little milestones, the bigger ones become progressively easier.
Right.
That's why I would suggest funding this change again.
Well, this has been so much fun, significantly longer than most of my interviews, but man, I think such incredible wisdom because of the dynamic that we have here. So Lee, I want to thank you for putting this together and allowing this to happen, because this really made a huge difference. This is by far one of my favorite interviews I've done, simply because we've had the opportunity to do this. Plus, you guys are just such fun people. I have no doubt that we're going to continue to see you over and over again. For me, this is just such a pleasure because we've now had the chance to get to know each other a little bit. And so there's certain traders who, I always look forward to seeing, hey, we've got another interview, because that means we've got more payouts, we've got more growth, we've got more development, and I have no doubt we're going to continue to see that here. So all three of you, so much for spending some time with me today and sharing the insight, the wisdom. Fred, next time we'll get a chance to have a little bit more of a chat with you as this continues to expand. I don't know, maybe we'll have a full block of 4 people on the next call. Who knows? We'll see what happens.
We'll look forward to seeing you in the U.S. Close LTR, mate.
I will definitely have to make it in there here as quickly as I can. One afternoon when I've got that time free, I will be absolutely in there checking you guys out. Thank you so much for y'all's time. I appreciate you guys, and we will see you on the next call.
Thank you.
Thanks, kids.